When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite, looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Within the gaming world, there are your general gamers, but then there are those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming. If you're one of those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming, we certainly got the place to send you. Scorpion Lair Games. That's right, Scorpion Lair Games is the creators of the true crime hit Killers, the card game. Let's not forget they also have Killers Clothing Company, their profiler game, and things like the 5-Minute Murder channel on YouTube. And we certainly can't forget the new book that is certainly a hit, Beyond the Headliners, True Crimes, Myths, and Legends. Make sure you visit Jeff and the Scorpion Lair Games on Facebook and everywhere today.
Hey, this is Doug Vermeeren. Thank you for joining us today. I'm a film and TV actor, and I'm so excited to be featured today on Crazy Train Radio. Make sure you tune in.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today. Before we get started, folks, we also wanted to let everybody know that is listening to this interview. It is being recorded on the D&D Fitness Apparel line. D&D Fitness Apparel is a Memphis-based comedy and clothing startup brand that is helping you reclaim the quality gym wear that you want to have on, but also does all the talking for you because you want to be comfortable while you are there to
Pump you up!
Feel free to visit them at dndfitapparel.com. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, our next guest is a repeat guest, and I mean that with the most respect because we enjoyed this guy so much. Why not have him back to discuss his upcoming project, Until There Was One? which is a magnificent motion picture works. You know, it has a variety of different cast members, from Douglas Tate to Ron Sloan, Lauren Marie Taylor, and just many others, most of them friends of the show. But why don't we go ahead and welcome Doug Vermeeren. Doug, how are you, sir? Thank you for coming back.
Yeah, good to be with you.
And rumor has it, because we know everything online, even emails back and forth, you take it as it is. But rumor has it, you've been a busy bee since we last spoke on that documentary.
100%. It's been really awesome. In fact, I just got off a movie set, and I'll be heading on to one in about 2 days again.
Yes. Well, the project that we are going with, and I'll have a couple of other things as well, but the one we are going to be mentioning is Until There Is One, which is the
Very exciting.
Which is the magnificent motion picture works. And
Correct.
I got to ask, because obviously the way I read the release and everything, it seems like you're going to be filming that upcoming, but also on social media, because I have a mutual friend involved with it. Did you shoot some of the stuff already, or?
Yes, certain elements of it have been shot, like some of my things as Maxie Jinx, which is kind of that character. Well, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about him in a minute, but we've shot some segments with Maxie and then a few with the other horror celebrities, if you will. And there's still quite a bit to go, though. There's still quite a bit that we're going to be doing. So,
right on. And the person I was referencing, because I'm sure you saw me poking fun at her, is a mutual friend, Lauren Marie Taylor from Friday the 13th Part 2. And
of course.
I always, and I know I'll get a phone call on this, but it's fine. She sometimes, will put something funny on Instagram, and I'll poke it and go, yeah, I'm one of those, I like the needle. So I remember there was a photo of you guys on the set, and I was poking fun at it. But I do want to mention some of the other folks involved with the project of name value. Not that everybody isn't of value, but you got Douglas Tate, who was Halloween Kills, Freddy vs. Jason, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. You had Ron Sloan from Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, and 13 Fanboy, which is excellent. Like I said, Lauren's involved. You also have a Marty Carpoto. I bad names wise.
Matty Carter. Yeah. Matty Carter from Stranger Things.
Free Guy in Jurassic World and all. So it's a nice mixture of the cast. So I do want to mention, and we'll get into the questions as well, it's opening to 300, I believe, for casting, so they can break a Guinness World Record for highest slasher death count in a feature film, and it's crowdfunded and can be involved in different ways. So what can we, besides what I said, what can we talk about with this?
Well, I guess that, even the crowdfunded thing is probably a thing to address, which is kind of interesting. Crowdfunding obviously has been a big trend, especially in the horror genre, where people can participate, have a speaking role or an acting role in a film. But this is a little different. So, if you go to a fan expo or the horror conventions and things, often if your favorite celebrity's there, you could pay to get a picture with them or buy their autographs or whatever. Yeah. In this case, the way that it's set up is you can actually get killed by the person that you admire. So, for example, you could have Doug Tate kill you, or Matty Carterpole, or Ron Klein, or Ron Sloan, or one of these other people who is in the film. And I think that's kind of a unique thing, because there's not very many opportunities where a person could come up and get killed by, say, the guy who played Jason, or the guy who played Mike Myers, or some other really big name. So I think this is a very, very unique opportunity. So I just think that that's cool. So in addition to breaking the Guinness Book of World Records, which of course will set cinema history, because the current record is 155 kills in a slasher movie. They did it in 2011, so that record has stood for quite some time. So we're actually aiming at doubling that. And we're confident that that's going to be around for a long time. So it's part of, again, a really important part of cinema history to be involved in this. So it's pretty cool.
Now, with the crowdfunding, and in certain aspects, there's maybe the, I guess you can word it as pay to play concept. And obviously, I'm familiar with a couple of the other horror movies that have done this, like Terrifier 2 and such.
Right.
But is there good and bad? Because I hear, like, especially in the independent film scene, you hear folks bitch about pay to play because there are people who are actors for a craft trying to get roles, but then you get fans who are paying to play. You know what I'm saying? Is there a good and bad to the
let me maybe
situation?
share something. Yeah, and share something to think about in the industry. The reality is there is an old-fashioned notion among actors. It's also like, we don't pay to be actors in film. But what they don't understand is how the industry really works. If you look at movies like Mission Impossible, that's actually Tom Cruise is paid to make that movie.
Yeah.
Right. Or if you look at even some of the earlier films, that are very visible, is things like Charlie's Angels, where Drew Barrymore actually is funding it, or any Adam Sandler movie where he's funding it. So most actors who are unemployed and, not making things happen, what they should be doing is making a movie, because that's how the industry works. Right. If you're not working, you should be making a movie. And so I think this idea of pay to play, to me, I think the only people really frowning on that are people who are not confident to advance their career. And if I'm being quite frank, I have also put money in my movies. I have put money in other people's movies. And it's not an uncommon thing, but it kind of has a stigma. And I think it was probably created by the agents, because an agent doesn't make money if you're not getting paid to be the actor. They only make money in that way. So I think really those who understand that this is show business, the reality is there needs to be an exchange of money in many circumstances if you want to grow your career. It's the same as if you were paying for acting lessons. Only this time now you've got not only a demo reel out of something, but you've actually got a movie, right? Yeah. So I don't understand actors who say, oh, I'll go take lessons and I'll take classes and I'll invest in my craft. But when it comes time to actually performing in a situation where the public will see it, they're like, oh, I would never pay to do that. That's, to me, a really kind of foolish approach, right? Yeah. And the thing that I also love about these bigger projects where there is pay to play, for the most part, if you look on what's available on Indiegogo, and you look at what the Mahals did and what people like Sean Phillips are doing, or even like, any of these guys. Chris Sanders is another great one. These guys actually bring in some fairly reasonable names, people that, you may have seen in other movies that you've admired. And so you're not just, again, paying for an acting class, you're paying for an opportunity to be in a scene with someone who's generally quite notable. And by the way, I do know of quite a few of these guys that do run these also as film schools. So for example, John Rousseau used to do this all the time, where people could come and they could pay, but it was a filmmaking experience where they'd create a movie. Or Whitman has done that too, where it's a kind of a class, but the end result is actually a finished movie. So I think that the way that the marketplace really is, if a person is serious about acting, I think this is a brilliant way to advance your career. Get yourself some IMDb credits, get some training on the set, get some footage that you could use, and really make it that you're credibly acting in the film world. I think it's a great idea. And not just with ours, but with anyone who's doing this, right?
Yeah. Because, like I said, or I should say, I have no skin in the game when it comes to that, but I've read the complaints which I just mentioned, but I also respect and knew the answer that you just gave, because, I know both sides. So, but I wanted to put that out there. But
and if I'm being also correct, well, one thing maybe I should also share is that it's not always pay to play. Like, the reality is there are some films that will take money from anybody and you can come and act in the film. But a lot of the ones that I'm aware of and I'm involved in, when there's significant acting roles, they still want you to audition. They still want to see a self-tape. So it's not that they're just like, hey, you've got money, come on. They still want people that are talented, because ultimately in the end, like even with some of the films that I've produced, I've got a relationship with distributors, and if I bring crap to the table, they're not going to want to talk with me anymore. So I've got to find actors who are suitable and people who can carry that kind of a role with credibility so that I'm not destroying my movie. So it is a 50-50. So if you've been invited to participate in one of those, it's not just because, well, in the good ones anyways, it's not just because you've got some cash available. It's because quite often those who are involved believe that you could also carry this. And I think that that's a big part that actors forget, right? Like you do need to bring your A game. There is a lot of work. In fact, you'll have scripts still to memorize, and it'll be exactly the same as other movie experiences. So there's value there. There's massive value there.
Yeah, and I think the people bitching and complaining that, which is the reason why I brought it up, was also
Right.
because sadly, like in anything else, there are folks who would just scam and take advantage and all that fun stuff.
Right.
So sadly, I
Yeah.
shouldn't say all that fun stuff, but sadly, there's that.
It happens. And I guess we should mention that too, is that if you are going to do pay to play, it's important that you have an agreement in place so that you know what happens if the movie doesn't get done or doesn't get done on time, that your money is safe and coming back to you. And I think it's also important that you look at people who have produced movies before, right? So you don't want to be anybody's first time project. I'm thinking that, for me, whenever I'm looking at these things, I really want to know the previous work that these people have done, because film is a collaboration. Film is a collaboration, and if somebody is out there doing a great job and they're producing great films, of course I want to be part of that, right? Because this is someone that's going to go somewhere. And the other thing that I think is important, not only for the actors, but also for these people making the films, is just remember that where people start isn't where they wind up. So sometimes if I can contribute to someone's film, whether it's even financing or acting or whatever, they are on their way to being something. In fact, I just did 2 student films this year of people who are literally still in high school. And I was honored to be part of that. I thought the scripts were brilliant. They were very creative people, super impressive imaginations. But the truth is that kid who's in high school today is going to be doing different things tomorrow. He's only got one way to go, and that's up. And so if I can support him at the beginning, often that's going to open doors for my career in the future. And so I think it's a smart move if you have the time, the means, the ability, and the talent to help make a project better, regardless of the level. I think it's fun to get involved if you can do it.
And all I'll say is, folks, just do your research, like Doug said here.
Right.
So where, or I should say not where, what is the projected timeline until there's one that is complete and released and all that fun stuff?
Sure. So there's actually, I guess, a little bit more to that question than meets the eye. So obviously, we're currently in the casting phase. We're going to be shooting most likely in 2 locations. So originally, we were going to just be shooting in Canada. We are still going to be doing a lot of the work in Canada, but we're also going to run a second unit that's going to also have the celebrities there as well for the kills and things in Las Vegas, Nevada. And so Las Vegas is a really easy place for anybody to get to. I think because of the gambling industry, they made the tickets there cheap to fly in, and hotels are relatively easy. So we felt like that would be more accommodating for people to get themselves there. And then naturally, a lot of our celebrities are coming in from Los Angeles. And so that's either a quick car ride or a quick flight. And so what's happening is that shoot is taking place in Canada in September, with part of the shoot also taking place in October in Las Vegas. And then, as you know, we'll have to go through post-production because this is a slasher movie. There is a ton of blood that's going to be spilt. I mean, if you're killing 300 people, we're going to talk bucket loads. We might even break the record for that too. Who's to say? But once we have all that footage, then of course in the editing process, there will be visual effects and a variety of other things that get added. That's often the most lengthy part of the process of making a movie. And then from there, we will do a variety of red carpet style premieres to celebrate the movie. We'll probably also be doing a tour through the various horror conventions. And then we've got distribution that's already talking about doing it as a theatrical release. So it's going to be a fun year, but I would expect that the film would probably come out sometime, most likely after next summer, right? It would need that kind of a ramp up to get us going.
No, totally understand, especially with projects like this. But
right,
people keep keep your eye open for this, and I'll keep everybody posted. But you mentioned
Sure.
doing stuff with some student films and such, which
Yes.
I didn't notice, but I found that a little tongue in cheek because the homework I've done on you, and I've known you a little bit
Right.
since the last time, but there was a rumor out there that you would skip school to spend time on movie sets. So you went
Not
the
a
other way
rumor,
on that.
it's a fact. It's a fact, actually. I did quite regularly. And I started doing that. I know this is going to make my parents upset, but I was doing that already in middle school. Now, I'll be honest, I was doing movies already when I was in, elementary grades 1 to 6 and stuff. But I had permission then to skip, and I had to get people driving me. So I had my grandpa drive me most of the time. But when I was in middle school, I didn't really need that support anymore. So I started doing things on my own. And high school, any chance I heard that there was a movie, I would try and get involved in some capacity. So
Those younger years, is that when you were doing like the newspaper boy deal for a TV?
yeah, that was my first role. But again, with high school, like I didn't even have to have a specific role. I'd come out and do background if I could. And if they wouldn't give me background, I would even try and help out on the crew if I could. But obviously, most times they wouldn't let me because they wouldn't, I wouldn't be under their insurance or their employment agreements. But I did have several films that allowed me to. And I also did some music videos and television commercials like that. But again, not coming in as authorized and being under 18, I had to sometimes sort of stretch the truth a bit to be able to get on the set. And sometimes waivers that I signed were not using my actual name and stuff like that, whatever it took so I could get on the set. But of course, I mean, now that my parents know about it, they're not super disappointed in me. They're just, he is what he is. That's the way it goes.
It could have been a lot worse, and we won't tell anybody about the waivers and the legalities.
Yeah. It's too late now anyways. But actually, one thing that was a blessing is I did have a couple of teachers in high school, especially. They knew that this was my dream, and they would often give me leads. They would tell me that there's a movie in town, and I would perk up and, hey, I guess I got to get out of here. So, yeah, I had a drama teacher that would give me extra credit just because they knew what I was doing and stuff. And so I still got marks at school for skipping school. But I'm sure they don't want me to talk too much about that influence young and impressionable minds that are currently in school.
Oh, the education system. Beautiful. Well, what about the efforts in working on stunts from like a teenager and from riding on it? And as soon as I read this, like riding on the roof of a speeding car, I thought of Teen Wolf, the movie from the Michael J. Fox.
Right, when he's what they call urban surfing. That's correct. Yeah. It's interesting because that first stunt that I did, I was about 13, and it was a girl that I knew. It was her car, and we were shooting it for a school project, and the teachers didn't like it, but we loved it. But what's really funny about that, you're gonna laugh at this. So full circle. So when I'm not doing movies, I'm often speaking on cruise ships. And I did a presentation on stunts, and I happen to have a picture of that, which is also on my Instagram if you want to see it, the same picture. So I'm on top of this girl's green car, and there was a gentleman in the audience who stopped for a minute, and he looked at it, and he's like, that's my old car. And it turned out that was his daughter, and I did not know it. And so we reconnected all these years later with the guy who owned the car. And it's funny, they had me over to their house around Christmas time, and we chatted about old times. But that was indeed the guy's car. His daughter had taken his car out, and I was riding on the top of it. Now, I have to admit, I don't advise doing stunts like that without supervision, which is what we were doing. And here's another funny part about that day when I was doing that particular stunt. So the night before, I was babysitting some of my nephews and nieces. And one of my uncles paid me, I think it was, I don't know, $20 or something like that. And I put it in a wallet. Canadian. So like it's worth about $3 American. Anyway, put it into my wallet. I stuck it in my pocket. I got up there, was doing that stuff. But when I came back, my wallet was missing. So one of the biggest regrets of that day is I lost $20. So it is what it is.
Well, obviously I had you on before with the one documentary, but you've mentioned about producing and doing stuff behind the scenes. Right. You've produced and directed 4 top personal development documentaries. So
actually 5 now. We've just had another one come out. So 5 now. Yeah.
So would you say they are all on the same level as far as topic, or would they vary, the
They
documentaries?
did vary. So the first one that we did was called The Opus, and it had many people in business and stuff, like the creators of Chicken Soup for the Soul and the founders of FedEx and former CEO of Fruit of the Loom Underwear and a bunch of other people. And that one talked about when you have a vision of what you want to achieve in life, how do you turn that into a workable plan and ultimately performance in your life, so that it's not just a plan now, it's a habit. That was the first one that we did, called The Opus. The second film that I did, we had people like John Gray, who did Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and Bob Proctor, and some of the big names, Mary Morrissey. And we actually spoke about the power of gratitude, and the film's called The Gratitude Experiment. And the third one was called The Treasure Map, and it was all around the mindset of abundance, not necessarily wealth, because as one of the speakers in the film said, everyone is wealthy, it just appears in the form that we value most. So what does abundance in your life look like to you? For some, it's spending more time with your family and friends, and some it's excelling at the things that you're passionate about, and so forth. So that movie, The Treasure Map, was great, and that came out. And then we did one that just dropped literally on streaming services earlier this week, called How Thoughts Become Things. And the reality is what we think about most, we bring about. That's what becomes how should we say, the essence of how our life is created. Now, the interesting thing about that movie is in 2006, there was a film called The Secret. It went really big on shows like Oprah Winfrey and on Larry King and Ellen, and it became a multinational best-selling book around the world. And it talked about something called the law of attraction, that we attract things into our life. Well, in this movie, How Thoughts Become Things, I've got most of the cast coming back from The Secret. And they talk about, again, now that you know what you want in the world, how do you construct thought patterns that will start to attract it to you? Because, again, what we think about, we bring about. And it's actually very impressive. It's got the last footage of Bob Proctor ever shot and the last footage of Dennis Waitley ever shot. And so it's very, very important. Many people are calling it the sequel to The Secret. So if you enjoyed that film, this is a natural segue into what to do next. And then we've also just had one come out called The Science of Getting Rich. And The Science of Getting Rich, we've got people like Sharon Lechter, who was the co-author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad in it. There is additional footage there from people like Bob Proctor and John DeMartini and Marie Diamond and many of the big thought leaders of today. And The Science of Getting Rich, funny enough, overlaps the idea of thought and also creating wealth. And it has some really incredible strategies that I think are extremely helpful for the challenges we're having in today's economy. And the thing that I think is also very fascinating here, sorry, someone's down through there. The thing that's also very fascinating about all of this is that the reality is with any of these movies, that if we want to expand what we have in our life, we have to expand who we are. And so these are just tools that show us and teach us, people that have been there, that can mentor us in not only our thinking and our habits, but also in our results. What do we do once we've gotten there? And I think it's just a fascinating world. I still do a lot of work in the personal development industry. I think I am a product of that. You know, people ask me, how did I get to my success? It's really from learning from people who are smarter than me. You don't have to worry about having all the answers. If you're willing to be a student, the truth is you can do anything, but you have to be willing to learn.
Absolutely. And I always reference, it's buried in here because I need a new bookshelf, but I always reference former President Clinton's book and his autobiography from early in his life through his first presidency, or through his presidency and all. And I'm summarizing here, but he always talks about, or he talked about in the book, he said, I consider myself a smart guy. And of course, I had things like that they didn't talk about at the time, like ADHD and things like that. But he also said, I had to be willing to surround myself with smart people and also people, even if it wasn't on the same political level of me. I had to be not afraid to reach across the aisle, like say financial, like an Alan Greenspan, or reach out to this one. They might be opposite political party, but I had to reach across the table and pick the brains of people who were smarter than me to make the decision I needed to make. So,
right. You probably actually heard the saying that says you become like the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you hang around with 5 losers, you get to become the next one. But if you hang out with 5 incredible people or people that are stretching you higher, you will also succeed. And so I think it's important that we recognize that, not only who we surround ourselves with as people, but what we surround ourselves with. And that they are things that inspire and empower us and allow us to get to the next level in whatever we're doing. Right? So I like that idea.
Yeah. All right. So as we sit here in mid-July of 2025, how do you define success for yourself? What are your
that's a great
goals?
question.
Where do you see that with you right now?
Yeah, I think success is an interesting thing to define. And as I was doing the personal development stuff for so many years, I think coming up with a definition of what success is for me is something that I've struggled with. And the reality is a definition of success is going to change per person. We all have different things of what that will be. And I also believe that at different times in our life, there's different goals that we have. For example, if you're not currently in a relationship, maybe your goal becomes to have a relationship. If you're currently, unemployed, maybe your goal is to get employed, right? So I think our ideas around success are ever changing. And so I think maybe one of the things that I would say is success, number one, has to have progress involved. I have to feel like I'm moving towards a worthy goal that's important to me. And then I think the other thing is to feel loved and have gratitude. When we are moving towards what we want and we also feel loved and have gratitude, I don't know that there's much else that you can ask for.
Right on. So, final question for you, and this is more personal because, again, you read things on the internet here, but
of course,
there was rumor, and I would think this is true because of getting to talk to you over the past year and a half and stuff, and even this conversation.
Right.
Would you say it was things like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Star Wars, and Back to the Future, things like that in the 80s, 70s, and 80s that really inspired you to do what you do now?
I think it was definitely a big part of it. And there's no question that movies like that have inspired many filmmakers to begin their journey. I love those movies and I still love them today. In fact, they're among my favorites. But I wonder if, I guess your question is talking about what got me started. I'd say, yeah, probably was movies like that. What keeps me going is some of the films that I've also seen since, and to recognize that there's also still a lot of incredible stories that need to be told that haven't even been made yet. In fact, it's interesting. Sometimes people ask me, how do I choose what projects and what movies I will do? And my answer is very simple. Is this a movie I would like to see? If it's something that I would want to watch, then I'm going to be, involved in it. And the reality is my tastes are different than everyone else. So maybe some of the movies that I've made, you're like, well, he wanted to see that movie. It sucked. Well, maybe in your perspective. But when I read the script, I thought this could be something really quite special. And so I am looking for stuff to be part of that I know that I'm going to have a good experience with. Now, does every movie turn out how it looks like on the script? Unfortunately not. And sometimes, fortunately, not. Sometimes they're way better than what we see on the script. And I've been surprised by stuff that I've done at times where I'm like, wow, this turned out absolutely wonderful. And then in other times, I'm like, meh, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? It's just the way the movie business is. In fact, if you even look at some of the biggest stars in the world, like, unfortunately, Sylvester Stallone, who I admire and think he's incredible, has not had a hit with every movie he's put out, right?
Isn't that true?
And neither have people like even Michael Caine, who's an absolute legend, or Donald Sutherland, who, was also a legend, or some of these big people, Marlon Brando, even the first movie he directed was a flop, right? So I think there's very few people who every movie that they did was just legendary. I think the only guy off the top of my head, you're going to laugh at this, is probably James Dean, who did 3 movies. All 3 of them are fantastic.
Exactly. Well,
so
I'll wrap with this because you mentioned about everybody's tastes are different, and obviously most people like the movies I've referenced. But looking behind, you have a Marilyn Monroe poster, you have a Steve McQueen poster, etc. So,
and I've got more over there too.
So, what's the current taste that, like, if we were to come have a beer at your house or eat dinner and, hey, let's throw something on a tube. What's our taste, whether it be movie, TV show? What's our vibe currently?
Well, I think it'd be different depending on who's coming to the house. But I will tell you this: I'm about to work on another horror movie that I'm going to be a co-writer on. And so when I'm in sort of writing mode, I'm also what I'm going to call research mode. And so I'm always looking to see movies that I've enjoyed, that I believe have some very unique elements to them that maybe could help. What do they say, that a good artist steals, right? And so an artist is always reinterpreting what they are finding in the world. So when I'm working on certain projects, I like to have that influence in my life. And so I'm a really big fan of more, I'm going to call them vintage type horror movies, things that came out in the 60s, maybe even the late 50s, definitely the 70s, early 80s kind of became a slasher thing. So, I mean, there's a lot of great slasher movies, but that's not what we're doing. We're trying to do a psychological thriller. So I'm leaning into some of those. On my list will be movies like The Conjuring, Heretic. There'll be things like Hereditary. There'll Sinister, I just saw last night. There'll be things like, goodness sakes, obviously Annabelle. Anything from the Conjuring series I think was great. The Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby, Devil's Reign, all kinds of these films I'll be watching, Midsommar, just because they've got sort of a flair of something we're trying to catch from a psychological point of view in this film that we're going to do. So I think if you were to come over to my house tonight, we're watching a horror movie.
Nice. Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Douglas, thank you so much for the time, and keep me posted on the projects.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me. It's always a pleasure.
Right on. Talk to you soon, brother. Thank you. Hey folks, looking for the ultimate destination for the nerd enthusiasts and collectors? Well, we found the spot for you. Nerds Nest Collectibles is a haven for nerds, geeks, and fans alike, as they have many different products and certainly more to come. Make sure you go ahead and visit them at nerdsnestcollectibles.com. Check them out.
Hey brother, this is Devon Duffy of the Duffy Boys, Team 3D, whatever you want to call me. But you're listening to the top radio show in the world, the Crazy Train Radio. And my brother, that I will testify to. Oh, testify.